All right. Well, welcome. We're so glad that you're joining us today. We are here. We're going to dive into the Leadership and Instructional Foundations for Texas program, or the LIFT program. We're also going to take a look at the add-on, which is the School Improvement PLC support, which is also a part of LASO Cycle 4. In this session, you will get a clear understanding of what LIFT is, why it matters, and how you can support your district in building strong instructional systems. Presenting today are myself, Amanda Galvin, District Engagement Specialist, and I also have on the call today Laura Farber, which is our Executive Director of High Quality Instructional Materials and Implementation. We are here to walk you through the program details and answer any questions that you may have. Feel free to submit questions throughout the session using the Zoom Q&A feature. So you're going to notice typically when you're in a Zoom, you have the chat feature. Today, we're going to use the Q&A feature. We anticipate several questions coming through. So we're going to try our best to answer them as we go along. However, after all the webinars are completed and slides and recordings will be posted on the LASO Cycle 4 website. So you are going to have access to everything that you need. We're going to do our best, like I said, to answer questions that come in today, but in the event that a question is asked and we can't answer, please include your email address and we can follow up at a later time, or you can grab that frequently asked questions document that will be on the LASO website. If you have any follow-up questions that you think of after this webinar, you are always welcome to email us at lift@tea.texas.gov. So with that being said, let's get started and take a look at our agenda. We are going to start with a quick overview of LASO Cycle 4. Then we're going to take a deeper look into LIFT. We're going to follow up by that School Improvement PLC add-on grant for any districts that joined us today that might have some campuses in school improvement and how we can support. We will close with key dates and how to apply. Just remember throughout this session to add any questions that you have in that Zoom Q&A session. Before we move into our two grants for today, let's take a quick overview of what LASO is. LASO stands for Learning and Acceleration Support Opportunities. LASO is TEA's consolidated application that bundles grants, allotments, and in-kind supports into a single process. It really simplifies access to key strategies that accelerate learning and enable innovation. So as you can see, we have $500 million that are dedicated to those supports and services. This year, we have 15 initiatives that support learning acceleration and innovation, and one single application to apply for that funding. LASO's portfolio organizes work around core strategies. Our focus for today is going to sit underneath that curriculum instruction umbrella because that's where the LIFT and the LIFT SI PLC add-on live. We will keep today's discussion in those two offers. So I want to hone in just really quick on kind of where we are within that LASO portfolio. This table gives a high-level overview of the 15 grant opportunities, but we are going to zone in right here onto these two particular opportunities that we're looking at today. It's the LIFT and the LIFT add-on PLC support. So let's take a deep dive into what this grant opportunity is. LIFT, or Leadership and Instructional Foundations for Texas, is a 3-year program designed to support Texas school systems in building instructional systems level capacity needed to deliver high-quality learning experiences for all students. This program is built on 3 powerful TA initiatives: Strong Foundations, Texas Instructional Leadership, and Texas Lesson Study. By bringing these together, LIFT provides a comprehensive support for districts. I hope some of those programs may have been something familiar to you. As I mentioned earlier, LIFT is built on the strengths of 3 proven TA programs. So if you've participated in any past TA initiatives, you may recognize some of these logos. They might be familiar to you. LIFT is in its inaugural year and represents a bold step forward, merging these 3 high-impact initiatives into one comprehensive program for Texas school systems. From Strong Foundation, LIFT brings rigorous planning and support for HQIM, or high-quality instructional materials adoption. From Texas Instructional Leadership, it adds leadership coaching, observation and feedback cycles, and performance management routines. And from Texas Lesson Study, it incorporates collaborative practices like lesson internalization and student work analysis. Together, we know these elements create a powerful foundation for sustainable instructional improvement across districts and campuses. This slide is going to give you just a quick snapshot of what LIFT is all about. First and foremost, it's a 3-year program. That's kind of moving away from something that you may have done in Strong Foundations. This really means that districts receive sustained support over multiple years to create lasting instructional change. Second, LIFT uses aligned support models, really tailoring assistance for district leaders, campus leaders, and teachers, so everyone is working towards the same instructional vision. Finally, the program is designed to take you from HQAM vision to sustainability, guiding school systems from setting that vision all the way to building stronger, sustainable instructional systems that last beyond just this grant. And that really hones in our why. Now that you've seen a quick snapshot of what LIFT is, let's talk about why the program was created. High quality instructional materials are essential for student success, but they're not enough on their own. To truly bring curriculum to life, districts need strong instructional leadership systems that support teachers. LIFT is designed to pair great materials with great systems so every student benefits from excellent instruction. Implementing high quality instructional materials well requires alignment across every level of the system. This slide shows how LIFT impacts every level. At the classroom level, teachers learn research-based strategies aligned to instructional vision and engage in initial HQIM training. Moving on up, instructional leaders, principals, and coaches also play a critical role in supporting that vision. They communicate expectations, guide HQIM selection, and ensure campus level support at the top. Superintendents and chief academic officers are also a part of this to define the vision, lead change management, and secure board approval for HQIM adoption. What's really important here is that all these roles are not siloed. LIFT creates alignment across all levels so that teachers, campus leaders, and district leaders are working towards the same instructional goals. That is what makes LIFT comprehensive. It builds systems where every link in the chain supports strong instructional delivery. Now let's take a look at the instructional leadership realm. As we mentioned earlier, implementing high quality instructional materials alone is not enough. You need to have strong instructional systems to achieve sustainability. Instructional leadership is the backbone of strong implementation. LIFT ensures that every level of the system plays a role. At the classroom level, teachers internalize and prepare for HQAM delivery, differentiate instruction, and analyze student work to close gaps. At the campus level, instructional leaders, principals, and coaches lead PLCs. They observe and coach teachers frequently and follow up with customized support to drive growth. At the district level, superintendents, chief academic officers set conditions for success by aligning systems, managing performance, and calibrating alongside leaders to build coaching capacity. The key takeaway on both of these is LIFT connects the roles of teachers, campus leaders, district leaders are not working in isolation. Instead, they're part of a coordinated system focused on consistent, high-quality instruction across every classroom. Now that we've had a quick glance at the LIFT grant and the why behind this powerful initiative, I'm going to turn it over to Laura Farber to give us some more in-depth look at what LIFT entails.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Amanda, and good afternoon, all. So as we think about LIFT, we know that districts can enter LIFT at one of two entry points. The first is planning. This option is for school systems preparing to adopt a state board approved high quality instructional materials curriculum for the 27-28 school year. At this stage, systems have not committed to any product. And if at the end of the planning year, the district adopts Bluebonnet Learning, they will continue in the LIFT program. If they choose a different state board approved product, they will conclude participation in LIFT after that planning phase. The next entry point is implementation. This is for systems that have already adopted Bluebonnet Learning for the 26-27 school year or plan to do so. These districts enter at the implementation phase and then continue through deeper implementation and sustainability. So again, to move through implementation sustainability, systems must adopt Bluebonnet Learning. And we know that LIFT provides those 3 years of support that we think will lead to really good sustainability with the programming. Regardless of where you start, LIFT will begin with a needs assessment to understand your district's current state and priorities. This assessment helps identify what systems are in place and where support will have the greatest impact for your district. From there, LIFT will provide customized programming across those three phases we discussed: planning, implementation, and then into sustainability. So whether you're preparing to adopt an HQIM for the first time or you're already implementing Bluebonnet Learning, LIFT will meet you and your district where you are and help you move towards that long-term sustainability for maximum impact. Let's think a little bit more about what this specifically entails. We'll start with the planning supports that would typically happen in a first year of engagement with LIFT. So planning supports help our districts lay the groundwork for strong implementation. This includes the development of an instructional framework, selecting an HQIM, aligning calendars and staffing and other operational considerations, training leaders on research-based instructional strategies, and more. These steps really create, as many of you know, the conditions for success when implementation begins. The needs assessment the district takes prior to the LIFT work will highlight if any of these areas are in need or if a district has already engaged and gone deep in these areas, but still may need a little bit more support. The next phase is initial implementation. This is where districts begin putting their plans into action. Notice that Bluebonnet Learning is the instructional material that will be used starting at the implementation phase. This stage focuses on ensuring that Bluebonnet Learning materials are not only adopted, but are also used effectively in classrooms. Supports include comprehensive product training for teachers and leaders and coaches, guidance on aligning instructional practices with Bluebonnet Learning. It also includes support to strengthen campus and district leaders' capacity to observe and give feedback, so that the instructional practices are really consistent across classrooms and teachers are growing in their use of the curriculum. Another key component of implementation is strengthening or aligning performance management routines at the district level to help district leaders use data from classroom observations, student assessments, and more to make informed decisions. The last piece I'll name is that this phase also includes refining assessment strategies so they align with instructional goals and give meaningful insights into student learning. Overall, the goal is to create a strong foundation for instructional excellence that can be sustained and then scaled. Let's talk about the third phase of the LIFT program, which is deeper implementation supports. For this deeper implementation focus, it is all about sustainability. At this stage, districts move beyond launching Bluebonnet Learning in classrooms to really embed strong instructional practices into daily routines. Supports for this phase include using data systems to monitor instructional quality, refining and strengthening observation and feedback cycles, also aligning evaluation and incentive systems for teachers to the use of an HQIM. Districts will also go deeper at this stage on analyzing student work, planning for learners with different needs, and building systems that really go beyond the program and grant period. So those are the three phases of LIFT. Now let's talk a little bit about some different pathways districts might experience. So let's imagine in this first pathway, a school system is interested in adopting HQIM, specifically Bluebonnet Learning, and applies to LIFT for the planning year. The LIFT needs assessment finds that A, the system has engaged with RB's research-based instructional strategies before, but they didn't develop an instructional framework. And B, there are some structures in place in the district for school-wide routines, still pathway one, thanks Amanda, for school-wide routines, observation, feedback, and PLCs, but the school system is not yet consistent with those routines. They look different depending on the school. So then the focus in that first planning year would be change in performance management, getting an instructional framework established and adopting the right materials. But there would also be continued supports in that planning year to help the district create consistency across schools for things like school-wide routines, observation and feedback cycles, and PLCs. And then from there, the district would move to the next phases of implementation. Let's talk about pathway 2. Another example of a district is that you can imagine a school system is preparing to implement Bluebonnet Learning K-5 math. So they are ready to implement next year for the first time Bluebonnet Math in 26-27. According to the LIFT Needs Assessment, the system is new to using HQIM, but did previously engage with one of the agency's programs, Texas Instructional Leadership, or TIL. So they've actually done some strong work on school-wide routines and streamlining observation and feedback across their campuses, but it's been a couple of years. There are new principals, there are new folks on their campuses. So that may look like starting with implementation because they're ready to implement Bluebonnet Learning, but still working on some change in performance management, ensuring operational alignment is present. They may need to build an instructional framework and still work with the research-based instructional strategies, or RBs. Those pieces, if they weren't previously done, would still be a part of initial implementation. They would get continuing support to strengthen the work they did with from TIL a couple years ago around school-wide routines as well as observations and feedback. Let's talk about one more pathway. So some of you on the call may fall into this third pathway, which is that you've engaged in strong foundations implementation in the current school year for Bluebonnet Learning, in this example, K-5 RLA, and math instructional materials, and you plan to continue implementation next year. So you're already using Bluebonnet and you want to strengthen it. The needs assessment might find that while this district has engaged in SFI, they didn't actually do strong foundations planning or SFP nor TIL. So there's not an instructional framework. They haven't had consistent observation feedback cycles, and they don't have school-wide routines implemented in a consistent way. That would mean the first year there on the left would focus on, again, change in performance management, research-based instructional strategies, and the framework, as well as getting those observation and feedback cycles grounded in Bluebonnet Learning really moving. And then the programming would continue to support and hopefully build on what's already going well in that district around PLCs and internalization, as well as operational alignment to using the curriculum well. So I hope that was helpful to hear about 3 different pathways and different entry points for LIFT, as well as how the path might be customized depending on what a district has already done versus what is new for them. We are going to shift now to talking about some of the benefits of LIFT. And I think there are several on the slide to highlight. We offer a robust set of benefits designed to build lasting capacity. You're going to hear us keep using that sustainability word. First of all, districts will receive support from an approved provider of their choice and receive high quality professional learning from that approved provider. They'll receive instructional systems support. They'll also get monthly classroom observations alongside the approved provider and sometimes more frequent, as well as at least monthly leadership coaching with an approved provider for various leadership levels in the district. And then finally, of course, customized technical assistance to support with those areas. Now let's take a look at funding. LIFT funding is flexible, but also sustained across 3 years, with award amounts varying based on district size. This structure really ensures that districts have the resources they need to build and maintain strong instructional systems. Funds can be used from the grant for approved activities such as provider support training and other implementation needs, which really gives districts the flexibility to address their unique context. To close out this section, how does LIFT benefit educators in my district? To reiterate something Amanda shared earlier, LIFT supports every level of the system, from the central office to the classroom. For district leaders, it offers leadership coaching, strategic planning, and tools for monitoring implementation. For those campus-based leaders, whether they be principals or instructional coaches, it provides supports for observation and feedback, school-wide routines, how to lead PLCs. And then for our teachers, LIFT delivers upfront and ongoing training, coaching, and planning support grounded in HQIM. This is all about building the capacity across the board and across roles so that everyone is equipped to support excellent instruction. Now that we've learned more about what LIFT is, I'm going to pass it back to Amanda to discuss LIFT eligibility.
So you've sat through a couple of slides with us and you might be interested in this product. So let's talk more about eligibility. If your district meets any of these 2 eligibility criterias, it's open to all Texas school systems, and you qualify in those 2 pathways that Laura mentioned earlier. First, you're ready to select and implement an SBWE approved HQIM in the 27-28 school year. So you're kind of in that adoption phase. You maybe haven't selected exactly what it is, but you're prepared to adopt. Or the other pathway, you've committed to implementing a Bluebonnet Learning product in the 26-27 school year. So if your district meets any of these criteria, we strongly encourage you to apply. Full details and guidance are going to be in the program guidelines, which are available on the LASO website. So along with our eligibility criteria, we do have several assurances as you're going through this grant process. Districts awarded the LIFT will commit to several key assurances. These include appointing a LIFT lead, securing a superintendent and CAO approval, contracting with an approved provider, and engaging leaders in training and coaching. We're really honing in on those leaders being in with the district data. Districts will also submit required deliverables and maintain communication with TEA. We want to ensure that the grant funds are used in alignment with the program goals. So if you want to take a minute just to kind of look through these program guidelines, assurances, you can also take a look at them in our program guidelines. Implementing LIFT successfully requires a time commitment from key roles. Like we mentioned before, everybody at the school system is involved in this particular program. Superintendents will provide strategic oversight while district and campus leaders will engage in planning, coaching, and performance management activities. Teachers will participate in training and implement instructional practices aligned with HQIM. These commitments ensure the program delivers meaningful and lasting impact. I know on this call we may have varying size in school districts. So if you look at the roles over on the left-hand side, if you have a school system that's a little bit smaller, that doesn't have all of these roles, you can go ahead and just kind of take who would wear that hat and put them into that particular role. The time commitments can be found on the LASO website for a more in-depth look. So now that you have applied and we're going into that awarding season, here is how the applications will be prioritized. Awards are made by product and districts are ranked in lowest to highest star scores within 5 priority tiers. Priority tier 1 includes system with commissioner appointed board of managers, monitor or conservator for academic performance. Tier 2 covers LEAs with an F-rated campus based on the 24 through 25 accountability or campuses federally identified for school improvement. That's CSI, ATS, or TSI. Tier 3 prioritizes districts implementing a Bluebonnet learning product that did not access Strong Foundations implementation support in LASO 3. Tier 4 includes systems that previously participated in programs like SFP, SFI, or TIL, are currently in TSL, or are in good standing or implemented a OER product, CER OER product. Finally, Tier 5 focuses on rural districts defined by enrollment size and growth rate. One or more important factors, districts with 165 instructional days or more, or those committed to moving to 165 days are prioritized. And I'm going to talk a bit more about that on the next slide. So why does 165 instructional days matter? The Bluebonnet learning scope and sequence is built on a 165-day calendar. Districts with more than 165 days are prioritized because that extra time ensures full implementation and alignment with the curriculum. If your district is committing to moving towards a 165-day calendar or is already implementing that in your district in the 26-27 school year, you are prioritized. This is all about giving teachers and students the time that they need to fully internalize and deliver high quality instruction. Like we mentioned before, approved providers are a big part of this process. So our approved providers include our education service centers and selected vendors that have been fully vetted. The full list will be posted on the LASO website, and districts will choose from the list when contracting for services. We want to ensure that that all supports meet the TA standards for quality and alignment. So like I've mentioned before, they've gone through a good vetting process. If your district is awarded LIFT and you contract with an approved provider, you have to include specific language required by the state of law and TA guidelines. These provisions ensure compliance with state and federal regulations. Take a look at this slide a moment just to kind of read it over, and you can also get this whenever you start more of that contracting support process. We can make sure that you have this. Now that we've had a really deep overview of LIFT, we're going to talk about that second grant opportunity that we mentioned earlier, the LIFT add-on school improvement PLC support. This is an optional one-year grant designated for campuses and school improvement. So I'm going to turn it over to Laura that's going to give us a more in-depth look on what this grant is.
Wonderful. Thanks, Amanda. So, thinking about the LIFT add-on, the School Improvement PLC support, this is an optional one-year grant designed for campuses in school improvement that are already participating in LIFT. It provides additional resources for PLC facilitation, but also observation and coaching cycles to strengthen instructional practices and really accelerate improvement at those schools. The LIFT add-on School Improvement PLC is really focused on supporting those campuses that are school improvement within a district and are needing that additional acceleration. To be specific for how this add-on works in comparison with the overall grant is that a district will apply for this grant for a select number of schools. Let's imagine a district decides to apply for 8 elementaries at their district to participate in LIFT overall, and that 2 of those elementaries are in school improvement status. They would then apply for the second grant, if interested, the LIFT add-on SIPLC, for those 2 specific campuses that are a part of the larger LIFT application, but are in school improvement and want to access these additional supports to accelerate student learning and teacher and leader support. To overlap this with a couple of the slides we looked at earlier, the SIPLC add-on would not be a part of the planning year because a district or a campus would have to be in implementation mode to apply to that part of the grant. But within initial implementation, you can see here that there are really 2 areas that they would get additional supports and more frequent supports to accelerate progress. And that is the additional coaching and observation cycles, as well as additional PLCs to just support a stronger implementation of HQIM from the start. Moving to deeper implementation, the SIPLC add-on continues to provide targeted support. So if a district is already in deeper implementation for that 1 year of the grant, it would include sustaining and refining PLC structures. It would include also strengthening and refining the observation and feedback cycles. And again, the goal for districts that would use this 1 year grant at the deeper implementation stage is to get to sustainability as much as possible. Let's go back to a couple of our pathway examples. I'm not going to share example pathway 1 from before because that was a planning example, but to go back to our example pathway 2, our school system that wants to start implementing Bluebonnet Learning K-5 math. Now let's imagine that district has 3 campuses in school improvement. Again, they would have a district application for LIFT where they would apply for a select number of schools, let's say 8 or 10. But they would also then apply for this LIFT PLC add-on for just those 3 campuses in school improvement. So the school improvement campuses would still get the same supports that all the schools that are a part of the LIFT programming and grant in that district are. They would just have these additional supports as well. Let's use one more example from pathway 3. Again, in this example, the district is already implementing HQIM and has 2 campuses in school improvement. The PLC add-on would then provide those extra supports for just those 2 schools. But again, those 2 schools would still receive the overall LIFT programming, focusing on assessment alignment and performance management and so forth. They would just get these extra touch points and supports around PLCs, observation, feedback, and really making sure that the leaders and teachers have strong coaching practices at the campus. All right, that concludes this part. I'm going to pass it back to Amanda to talk a little bit more about eligibility for this grant.
Yes, thanks, Laura. So this grant has a little different eligibility criteria. As we mentioned before, it is a grant for campus-specific schools and school improvement. So you're going to notice the yellow arrow kind of at the top. Kind of use some caution as you're thinking about this grant. To qualify for the LIFT add-on, a campus must be identified for school improvement under federal accountability. That's CSI, ATS, or TSI, and be part of a district that has been awarded the LIFT grant. So you're kind of like the whole district has the LIFT grant, and then those specific campuses that are in school improvement can qualify for the add-on. This ensures that the add-on builds the foundation established through LIFT and provides targeted support where it's needed most. So looking at scoring, applications for the SIPLC add-on will be prioritized based on federal accountability designations. Campuses identified as Comprehensive Support and Improvement, CSI, will receive the highest priority, followed by ATS and then TSI. This ensures that resources are directed to campuses with the greatest need. Here's again a flag at our approved providers. They are also education service centers and other outside vendors. However, I will note that they are the same as LIFT because districts who choose from, you must choose from this list, you must have the same exact approved provider for both LIFT and this add-on grant. So I'm going to flag that again and stamp it over and over again. The LIFT add-on PLC support grant must have the same approved provider for LIFT. This really ensures consistency and alignment across the program components. Again, going to just take a look at this slide. Any of the approved provider contracts that you put together has to have this particular language. It is a state law and TA guidelines. So as you consider applying for LIFT or the LIFT add-on grant, let's start by reviewing the program guidelines and align your internal team. Really think about your instructional priorities and confirm leadership commitment to begin the planning for provider selection. Taking these steps now will ensure a smooth application process and successful implementation. So now that we've looked at both grants, let's kind of think about this, what's going on with LASO. So taking a look at this LASO timeline, we're right here in the October realm where applications are open. I want to note that applications are going to open on December 3rd at 5 p.m. Key date to remember because you want to make sure your application's in before then. After applications close, then it's going to move to scoring and interviews. Those will run through January and awards are anticipated on February 2nd. Again, I'm going to stamp it over and over again. December 3rd at 5 p.m., your application must be in. TA did email a unique link to superintendents on October the 3rd. If your district needs a new link, you can go to the LASO website and go to the request form and request a new application link through the Qualtrics form. If you need to request a new application link, please find that request on the LASO website, like I mentioned before. I do want to note that superintendents must sign our applications before they're submitted. If you have any questions, we encourage you to attend our office hours for one-on-one support. Updated frequently asked questions from the questions that were asked today in the webinar will be posted on the LASO website in November. You can also email laso@ta.texas.gov for application related questions. But if you have some specific program related questions, please email us at lift@ta.texas.gov. A quick note that LASO is operating is a competitive grant process, so change requests and declines are not typical and will only be considered on a case-by-case basis. Here's another quick overview of the timeline. As I mentioned prior, we're in the application window, so go and apply if you feel like these grants fit your needs. Next steps is to visit the LASO 4 website, familiarize yourself with this grant and all the other grant opportunities that we have underneath the LASO umbrella. Register for any upcoming webinars that you feel are necessary. We do have this one running again in October towards the end. We have lots of resources available on the LASO website that includes initiative one-pagers, eligibility and prioritization guides, initiative selection tools, and roles and responsibility insight tools. So all of those can be found on the LASO website. Again, I'm going to stamp our email as well as the LASO email. You can email us if you have any programmatic related questions, lift@tea.texas.gov. And if you have some application related questions, laso@tea.texas.gov. We are always here to help. So I'm going to put this closing on here with our email. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're so glad to kick off this grant with you and hopefully see you in this next awarding process.